Daniel Cole was one of the richest men in the country, but tonight he felt tired, lonely, and lost in his own thoughts. He had just left a long business dinner where everyone talked about money, deals, and profit. Usually, Daniel enjoyed success, but tonight something inside him felt empty. He leaned back in the car seat and looked outside the window as the city lights passed by. It was almost midnight. The roads were quiet. His driver took a small side street to avoid traffic. The buildings here were older, the lights dimmer, and the air colder. Daniel was thinking about his life, wondering why everything felt the same every day, when suddenly he heard something, a soft sound, a weak sound, a sound that did not belong in the cold night. It was the sound of a child crying. Daniel sat up straight. "Stop the car," he said quickly. The driver looked confused but obeyed. The car slowed to a stop near a narrow alley. The cry came again, a little louder this time. It was the sound of fear, sadness, and pain all mixed together. Daniel felt a strange pull in his chest. He opened the car door without hesitation. "Sir, should I come with you?" The driver asked. "No," Daniel said. "Just wait here." He walked toward the alley. Each step felt heavy, like something important was waiting for him inside. The alley was dark, lit only by a flickering streetlight far behind him. Trash bins stood on one side, and broken boxes were scattered everywhere. The crying continued soft, but heartbreaking. Daniel's expensive shoes touched puddles of cold water, but he didn't care. His heart was beating fast, not from fear, but from worry. Why would a child be alone in a dark place like this? He moved deeper into the alley. The shadows grew longer. For a moment, he thought maybe he should call someone, security, the police, anyone, but something inside him said keep walking. He turned a corner and froze. There, sitting on the cold ground, was a small boy. His knees were pulled to his chest, his arms wrapped tightly around them. His clothes were dirty, his face wet with tears, and his tiny body was shaking from the cold. Daniel felt his breath catch in his throat. The boy looked no older than 6 or 7. The child lifted his head slowly when he sensed someone near. His eyes were large, scared, and full of confusion. He looked at Daniel as if he couldn't believe someone had finally come. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Daniel knelt down gently so he wouldn't frighten the boy. "Hey, it's okay," Daniel whispered in a soft voice. "I'm here to help. What's your name?" The boy wiped his nose with the back of his hand. Eli, he said in a small voice. Daniel nodded slowly. "Eli, that's a nice name. Are you hurt? Are you alone?" The boy nodded again, this time more sadly. My mom didn't come back," he said. "I waited and waited, but she didn't come. I got scared." Daniel felt something heavy press on his heart. How long had the boy been here? Why was he alone? Why was no one helping him? "How long have you been here?" Daniel asked softly. "I don't know." Eli whispered. "It was light before, and then it got dark." Daniel understood. The child had been alone for many hours. A cold wind passed through the alley. Eli shivered hard. Daniel immediately removed his expensive coat and wrapped it around the boy. The coat was big, warm, and soft. Eli looked surprised, as if no one had ever done something like that for him. Daniel smiled gently. "You're safe now. I promise." Eli looked at him, his eyes shiny with tears. "No one came before," he said quietly. Those words hit Daniel deeply. No one came. No one cared. No one even looked. A child crying in the dark. And the world just walked past him, but Daniel did not walk away. He lifted the boy gently into his arms. Eli was so light, as if he hadn't eaten properly in days. Daniel felt anger not at Eli, but at a world where a child could vanish into a dark alley and no one noticed. When Daniel walked out of the alley, His driver's eyes widened. "Sir, is he all right?" "We're taking him somewhere safe," Daniel said firmly. Inside the car, Eli held Daniel's hand tightly, afraid to let go. Daniel squeezed his hand gently. In that moment, Daniel Cole, the billionaire who thought he had everything, realized he had been wrong. This small boy, found in the dark, would change his life forever, and Daniel didn't know it yet. But this was only the beginning of a story that would transform both of them. The car moved slowly through the quiet city as Daniel held Eli close, trying to keep him warm. The boy's small fingers were wrapped tightly around Daniel's hand, as if he feared being left alone again. Daniel could feel the boy shaking, not from cold anymore, but from sadness and fear. Every few seconds, Eli looked around like he expected someone to suddenly take him away. Daniel leaned slightly toward him. "You're safe now," he whispered. "No one will hurt you. I promise." Eli nodded, but Daniel could tell the child didn't fully believe it yet. A child who waited alone in a dark alley for hours did not trust easily. Daniel understood that. When they reached Daniel's private residence, large, modern, and glowing with warm lights, the staff rushed to open the door. They were surprised to see their boss carrying a small boy wrapped in his coat. "Sir, is everything all right?" The head housekeeper, Mrs. Helen, asked. Daniel gave a gentle nod. "He needs help. Prepare a warm room. Get him food. And please bring a doctor. A gentle one." Eli looked at the big house with wide, unsure eyes. He had never seen such a place in his life. The shiny floors, the tall lights, the quiet hallways, it all looked like another world. He held tighter to Daniel's coat. "It's okay," Daniel said softly. "You can stay here tonight." Mrs. Helen approached slowly, like a grandmother would. "Hello, sweetheart," she said gently. "Come with me. We'll take care of you." But Eli shook his head quickly and held Daniel's shirt with both hands. His grip said everything. "Please don't leave me." Daniel knelt down and looked directly into Eli's eyes. "I'm right here. I'll stay with you. I won't go anywhere." That finally calmed the boy. Mrs. Helen led them to a soft guest room. The bed was warm, the lights soft, and fluffy blankets were waiting. When Eli sat on the bed, Daniel noticed something sad. Eli looked confused by comfort, as if warm blankets were something he wasn't used to. A gentle knock came on the door. A doctor entered, carrying a small bag. He bowed politely. "Good evening, Mr. Cole. I came as fast as I could." "This is Eli," Daniel said. "Just check in carefully." He was alone outside for hours. The doctor smiled kindly at the boy. "Hi, little one. I'm here to help you. I won't hurt you." Eli nodded shyly. The doctor examined him carefully. "He is cold, tired, and hungry. But he is not injured. He simply needs rest, warm food, and safety." Daniel felt a small wave of relief. After the doctor left, Mrs. Helen brought a warm bowl of soup. Eli stared at it for a long moment, as if he couldn't believe food was just being handed to him. "You can eat," Daniel said with a smile. "It's for you." Eli ate slowly at first, then a little faster when he realized no one would take the food away from him. But halfway through, he suddenly stopped and looked around the room nervously. "What's wrong, Eli?" Daniel asked. Eli whispered, "Do I need to pay?" Daniel's heart cracked. "No, Eli," he said softly. "You don't need to pay. You're just a child. You deserve food. You deserve warmth. You deserve care." Eli blinked, confused. "My mom, she said sometimes we can't eat because we don't have money." Daniel touched the boy's shoulder gently. "Not tonight. Not here." After finishing the soup, Eli rubbed his eyes, tired from crying and fear. Daniel sat beside him and pulled a blanket over the child. "Can you tell me what happened?" Daniel asked softly. Eli nodded slowly, his voice trembling. "My mom said we had to leave our home. She said she would find work. She told me to wait near the alley. She said she would come back soon. A tear slid down his cheek. But she didn't come back. Daniel listened silently, his chest tightening with every word. No child should go through this. Do you remember where you lived before? Daniel asked gently. Eli tried to think, but his face showed how confusing everything was for him. I don't know the place, but I remember a big green door. And a lady who lived upstairs used to give me cookies sometimes. Daniel nodded. That helps. We'll find your mother. I promise we'll try. Eli looked up. You will really try? Yes, Daniel said firmly. I won't leave you alone. Eli slowly lay down on the pillow. He was still holding Daniel's hand, afraid that if he let go, everything would disappear again. Daniel stayed beside him until the boy finally closed his eyes and fell asleep. As Daniel looked at the sleeping child, something changed inside him, quietly but deeply. This wasn't just helping a lost boy. This was something bigger, something meaningful, something that touched the part of his heart he had forgotten existed. Daniel stood up slowly, watching Eli breathe peacefully. He had no idea where this journey would lead. But he knew one thing for sure. He could not walk away now. The next morning, sunlight slowly entered the guest room where Eli slept. Daniel stood near the door, watching the child breathe softly under the warm blanket. It felt strange how quickly this small boy had become important to him. Just last night, Daniel was focused only on business. Now he was worried about a child he didn't even know a day ago. Mrs. Helen stepped beside him and whispered. He slept peacefully. Poor child must have been exhausted. Daniel nodded. We need to find out what happened to him. He can't stay lost. After breakfast, Daniel called his private team people who handled important tasks for him. They arrived quickly, carrying tablets and notebooks. I need information, Daniel said firmly. This boy was found alone in an alley near Westwood Street. Start from there. Search cameras. Ask neighbors. Check shelters. We must find his mother. His team nodded and left immediately. Daniel then returned to Eli's room. The boy was awake now, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding Daniel's coat tightly like a shield. Good morning, Daniel said with a gentle smile. Eli looked up slowly. Are you still here? Daniel sat beside him. Of course. I said I wouldn't leave. The boy relaxed a little, the fear in his eyes softening. Mrs. Helen brought warm breakfast eggs, bread, and milk. Eli stared at the food like he did not know whether he was allowed to touch it. It's for you, Daniel assured him. Eli picked up the spoon carefully and began to eat. This time he didn't rush. He ate slowly, almost like he wanted to make sure the food wouldn't disappear if he looked away. After breakfast, Daniel sat with him again. Eli, he asked softly, can you remember anything else? Anything about where you lived? Anyone you saw? It can help us find your mother. Eli thought for a long moment. There was a big green door. And there was a shop downstairs. They sold old things, my mom. She sometimes helped them clean. Daniel wrote that down on his phone. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Then Eli said something unexpected. There was a cat. A white cat with one brown eye. It always sat on the stairs. Daniel smiled. That helps too. The boy's innocence made Daniel's heart ache. How could someone so small face something so big? A little later, Daniel's head of security, Mr. Grant, returned with an update. Sir, we checked the cameras near the alley, he said. The boy was there for many hours. No adult came looking for him. Eli looked down sadly. Daniel gently placed a hand on his shoulder. We also talked to people in the area, Grant continued. Some saw the mother a few days ago. She looked weak, possibly ill, and she seemed very worried. Eli's face fell. Grant added, one woman believes she went to a free clinic nearby. We're checking. Daniel nodded firmly. Keep searching. After Grant left, Daniel noticed Eli's expression. Do you want to talk? Daniel asked. Eli hesitated, then said, My mom. She tried very hard. She always said things would get better. She never wanted me to be scared. Daniel gently wiped a tear from the boy's cheek. I believe that. She must love you very much. Eli looked up helplessly. Then why didn't she come back? Daniel felt a heavy pain inside. He wanted to promise everything would be fine, but he didn't want to lie. Maybe she couldn't, Daniel said softly. Maybe something happened. But we will find her. I promise we will try with everything we have. Eli nodded slowly, trusting him a little more to help distract the boy. Daniel took him around the house. They walked through the big garden, the bright living room, and a small game room. Eli touched everything carefully, as if afraid he might break something. When they reached the garden, Eli stopped suddenly. Is this really yours? He asked. Yes, Daniel answered. It's so big, Eli whispered. It looks like a park. Daniel realized something. For him, the house was normal. For Eli, it was a world he had never imagined. Eli then asked a small but painful question. Do rich people always have food? Daniel paused. Yes. Usually. Eli lowered his head. My mom and I sometimes didn't. Daniel felt something sharp inside, something like guilt mixed with sadness. He had spent his life collecting wealth while children like Eli slept hungry. He crouched beside the boy. You and your mother deserved better, he said calmly. And I'll do everything to help now. Just then, Daniel's phone buzzed. It was Grant. Sir, we found something. A woman matching Eli's mother's description visited a free clinic. She was very sick. The staff say she left suddenly and didn't return. Daniel's heart tightened. Any address? He asked. Yes, Grant said. A small building near the old market. We're sending the location. Daniel hung up and looked at the boy. Eli, he said, we might have found a place your mother went to. We're going to check. Eli's eyes widened with hope and fear. Will she be there? He whispered. I don't know, Daniel replied honestly. But we will look. And we won't stop. Eli nodded and held Daniel's hand tightly again. Daniel understood something at that moment. He was no longer just searching for answers. He was searching for a child's world. A world that had collapsed. And he would not let that world stay broken. Daniel's car moved slowly through the city as he and his team searched for the old market area. Eli sat beside him, wrapped in a small blanket Mrs. Helen had given him. The boy looked out the window with wide eyes. Every street seemed familiar to him, but also confusing. His tiny hands kept gripping Daniel's arm as if he feared the world outside. Are you okay? Daniel asked softly. Eli nodded, but his voice shook. I want my mom. Daniel placed a gentle hand over the child's. We'll do everything we can to find her. After a few minutes, the car stopped near an old building with cracked paint and dusty windows. It was the free clinic the team had traced. Mr. Grant stepped out first and checked around. When he signaled all clear, Daniel opened the door and helped Eli out. Inside the clinic, the air smelled of medicine and old walls. A nurse recognized Eli's description immediately. Yes, I remember the woman, she said kindly. She was very weak. She looked tired and stressed. She kept saying she needed work to feed her child. Eli listened carefully, and his small fingers tightened around Daniel's coat. The nurse continued. She left suddenly one evening. She said she had no money for treatment. We tried to stop her, but she insisted her child needed food more than she needed medicine. Daniel felt a heavy weight inside his chest. That meant Eli's mother had been struggling alone, fighting to keep her child alive while her own health fell apart. Do you know where she went? Daniel asked. The nurse shook her head sadly. No, but someone said she might have stayed near the old market. Cheaper housing there. Not safe, but cheap. Daniel thanked her and took Eli back to the car. They drove toward the market area. Old streets filled with small shops, street workers, and people trying hard to survive each day. Eli pressed his face to the window. This place looks like where we used to go, he whispered. Daniel felt hope. They stopped near a narrow street lined with old apartments. Some doors were broken, and a few stray cats lay in the corners. Suddenly, Eli pointed at a staircase. The cat! The cat with one brown eye. Daniel looked. A white cat with one brown eye sat exactly where Eli pointed. That's from my home, Eli said, excitement and fear mixing in his voice. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. Let's check. They walked toward the green door Eli had mentioned. It was old, faded, and cracked, but it was real. This is it, Eli whispered. Daniel knocked gently. No answer. He knocked again. Still silenced. Mr. Grant tried opening the door. It wasn't locked. Inside, the room was small. Very small. A thin mattress lay on the floor, a broken table on one side, and a few clothes scattered in a corner. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Eli walked in slowly, his tiny feet barely making a sound. This is where we lived, he said. My mom always said we would move to a better place. Daniel looked around and felt something inside him break. This was how a mother and child had lived. Barely any food, no heat, no comfort. Yet the room had a sense of care. The clothes were folded, the floor swept. A mother who loved her child had tried her best with the little she had. Eli picked up a small toy car from under the table. My mom bought this for me. From the shop downstairs. His voice trembled. She said when she got a job, she would buy me more. Daniel knelt beside him. No child should live like this. You deserve better. She tried her best. Eli nodded, fighting tears. Suddenly, Mrs. Helen called from the door. Sir, there's someone outside asking about Eli. Daniel and Eli rushed out. A woman stood near the staircase, her hands shaking. She was thin, tired, and her face looked pale. But her eyes, those eyes were full of worry and hope. Eli? She whispered. Eli froze. Mom? In a second, the boy ran forward and threw himself into her arms. She hugged him tightly, crying into his hair. My baby. I looked everywhere for you, she said through tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Eli cried into her shoulder. I waited for you. I thought you left me. She shook her head quickly. Never, never, my child. I fainted. Someone took me to a shelter. When I woke up, you were gone. I thought I lost you forever. Daniel watched the emotional reunion quietly. The mother looked fragile, too fragile, but her love was strong. When she noticed Daniel, she straightened herself and wiped her tears. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you for protecting my son. Daniel shook his head. He is a strong child. He waited for you bravely. The mother looked at Eli's face and whispered, You saved him from the cold. I can never repay you. Daniel saw something in her eyes, fear, pain, but also deep gratitude. He realized how much she had suffered alone, trying to keep her son safe in a world that gave her nothing. He made a silent promise right then. He would not let this mother and her child fall back into this life. Again, the bond between Daniel and Eli was no longer accidental. It was something powerful. Something real. This was no longer just a rescue. It was the beginning of a connection that would change all their lives forever. Daniel invited Eli and his mother, Mara, to sit inside the car. Mara looked extremely tired, as if she had been carrying the weight of the world alone for too long. Her hands shook slightly when she held Eli close. Daniel noticed her breathing was uneven, and her face looked pale. Are you okay? Daniel asked gently. Mara gave a weak smile. I will be fine. I need rest. I haven't eaten properly in days. Eli looked at her with worried eyes. Mom, you should eat something. Daniel nodded to his driver, who passed a small food box to Mara. She hesitated at first, almost as if she felt she didn't deserve it. But Eli pushed the food toward her softly. Please, he whispered. She finally took a small bite. As she ate, Daniel noticed her hands trembling. This wasn't just exhaustion, something deeper was wrong. When they returned to Daniel's home, Mrs. Helen immediately rushed to assist. Oh dear, you look very weak. Come sit down, please. Mara tried to insist she was fine, but her legs wobbled and she nearly collapsed. Daniel quickly caught her arm and guided her to a chair. Rest, he said firmly. You need it. A doctor was called again. When he arrived, he examined Mara carefully while Eli sat by her side, holding her hand tightly. After a long moment, the doctor stepped aside to speak privately with Daniel. Mr. Cole, she is extremely weak. Lack of food, lack of medicine, and stress have damaged her health severely. She needs treatment. Proper treatment. Daniel's stomach tightened. Can she recover? Yes, the doctor said. But only if she starts treatment soon. She has been suffering for months. She hid her illness because she didn't want to burden her child. Daniel nodded slowly. He looked over at Mara, who was now hugging Eli tightly as if she never wanted to let him go again. She did everything for her child. Daniel whispered. Yes, the doctor replied. But she has reached her limit. Daniel walked back to them. Mara looked up at him, embarrassment in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I didn't want you to see me like this. You don't have to apologize, Daniel replied softly. You did everything a mother could do. You protected your child with everything you had. Mara's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. I didn't want Eli to suffer. I tried to work. I tried to stay strong. But my body, it gave up before I did. Eli hugged her tighter. Mom, I didn't know you were sick. Why didn't you tell me? Mara brushed his hair gently. Because you're my little boy. You deserve to feel safe. I didn't want you to worry. Daniel sat down near them. You don't have to fight alone anymore. Let me help. Mara looked at him with surprise. Why would you do that? You don't even know us. Daniel thought for a moment. The answer came from somewhere deep in his heart. Because no child should be left alone in the cold, he said. And no mother should have to choose between her health and her child's safety. Mara covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. You're a stranger, and yet you're kinder than people I've known for years. Daniel shook his head. I'm not trying to replace anything. I just want to help. At that moment, Eli reached out and touched Daniel's hand gently. His small voice trembled. Mr. Daniel, thank you. You helped me when no one else did. Daniel swallowed hard. That simple sentence felt heavier than any business deal he had ever made. Mara looked down, gathering strength before speaking again. There's something I must tell you, she whispered. I went to the clinic because I collapsed outside a store. Someone took me there. When I woke up, Eli was gone. I searched everywhere. I walked for hours. I went back to the alley. I called his name until my voice hurt. I thought I lost him forever. Eli hugged her again, his face buried in her chest. I thought you didn't come back because you didn't want me. Mara gasped and held his face gently. Never. I would never leave you. I love you more than anything. Daniel stood quietly, giving them space, feeling his heart twist as he watched them hold on to each other. After a few minutes, Mara looked at him again, her voice weak but honest. Mr. Daniel, you saved my son. If something had happened to him, I would never forgive myself. Daniel nodded. He's safe now. Both of you are. Mara lowered her head. But I cannot take him back to that place. We have no home, no money, no support. And with my health, I don't know how long I can take care of him alone. Her words shook Daniel deeply. This was the moment he realized the truth. This wasn't just about finding Eli's mother. This was about saving both of them. He took a breath and said gently, "Let me help you both recover. Stay here for now, rest, get treatment. Eli will be safe. You will be safe." No pressure, no fear. Mara looked at him with wide, emotional eyes. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. Why would you do this for us?" She whispered again. Daniel smiled softly. "Because last night I heard a child crying in the dark. And that sound changed something in me." Eli looked up at Daniel, then back at his mother. For the first time in a long time, Mara felt a fragile hope, but real, and Daniel knew he was now part of something bigger than himself. The next morning was quiet and peaceful. Sunlight entered the big living room of Daniel's mansion, touching the soft carpets and the tall glass windows. Eli sat on the couch with a warm cup of milk in his hands, while Mara rested in a nearby room under Mrs. Helen's careful watch. Daniel stood near the window, thinking about everything that had happened in the last 2 days. He had faced many business challenges in his life, huge negotiations, long meetings, difficult decisions, but nothing made his heart move like the little boy sleeping peacefully in his home. Nothing felt as meaningful as helping a mother and child who had been fighting alone for survival. When Eli noticed Daniel looking at him, he smiled shyly. "Good morning, Mr. Daniel." Daniel walked toward him. "Good morning, Eli. How did you sleep?" "Good," Eli said softly. "It was warm and safe." Daniel sat beside him, noticing how the boy's small legs dangled off the couch, too short to reach the floor. "I'm glad you felt safe." Eli looked down at his cup. "Are you really going to help my mom?" Daniel smiled gently. "I already am. And I won't stop." Eli's eyes softened with relief. "Thank you." A moment later, Mara slowly entered the room, supported by Mrs. Helen. She still looked weak, but her face was less pale than before. Eli immediately ran to her and held her hand. "Mom, are you okay?" Mara kissed the top of his head. "I'm feeling better because you're safe." Mrs. Helen brought her a chair and a light blanket. Mara sat down carefully, avoiding sudden movements. Daniel walked to her side. "The doctor will come again today. You need rest and medicine. Please don't worry about anything else." Mara sighed quietly. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," Daniel replied softly. "Just focus on getting better." For a moment, Mara simply looked around the elegant room. The clean floors, the soft lights, the quiet environment, it was nothing like the life she and Eli had lived. "This place is too much for us," she whispered. "It's just a place," Daniel said. "What matters is that you're safe here." Eli leaned against his mother, feeling warmer than he had in weeks. A knock came at the door. Mr. Grant entered with a calm expression. "Sir," he said, "we visited the old neighborhood." People remembered the boy and his mother. Many said they saw Mara searching for Eli on the night she fainted. They said she refused help because she feared someone might take her child. Mara lowered her gaze, ashamed. I didn't trust anyone," she said softly. "People took advantage of me before. I didn't want Eli to get hurt." Daniel nodded understandingly. "You did what any mother would do." Mr. Grant continued, "We also spoke to the clinic staff. They said Mara left because she didn't want to take up a bed when she couldn't pay." Mara closed her eyes, embarrassed. "I had no choice," she whispered. "Every coin I had was for Eli. I didn't care about me." Daniel leaned forward. "But now you don't have to choose between your health and your son." Mara opened her eyes slowly. "What do you mean?" "I want to help you fully, Daniel said. Not for one night. Not for 1 week. I want to help you recover completely. You will get the best treatment. Eli will have everything he needs. You don't need to worry about money, shelter, or food. Mara stared at him in disbelief. Why would you do all this? You owe us nothing. Daniel looked at her gently. Because sometimes life brings people into our path for a reason. And when I saw Eli crying alone in the dark, something changed in me. I couldn't turn away. Mara covered her mouth with her hand as tears filled her eyes. I'm not used to kindness, she whispered. Eli looked up at Daniel with shining eyes. So, we can stay here for now? Daniel smiled warmly. Yes, Eli, you can stay as long as you need. The boy suddenly threw his small arms around Daniel, hugging him tightly. Daniel froze for a moment, surprised, then gently wrapped his arms around the child. Mara watched the scene with trembling lips. He never trusted anyone this fast before. Daniel gave a soft smile. He's strong and brave. Eli turned to his mother. Mom, Mr. Daniel is nice. He helps us like family. Mara's eyes widened. Family, such a fragile word. Such a heavy word. But somehow, it felt right. Later that day, the doctor arrived again. He examined Mara and spoke privately to Daniel afterward. Her condition is serious, the doctor said. Months of stress and lack of nutrition have done damage. But with proper care, she can recover. What do you recommend? Daniel asked. She needs at least a month of treatment. Medicine, rest, and regular meals. And she needs emotional support. She's been carrying fear and responsibility alone for too long. Daniel nodded firmly. She will get everything she needs. Please prepare the full treatment plan. The doctor looked pleasantly surprised but nodded. When Daniel returned to Mara and Eli, Eli ran to him again, holding his hand. Are you going to help my mom get better? He asked anxiously. Daniel knelt down and looked right into his eyes. Yes, Eli, I promise. The boy's face lit up with hope, pure, innocent hope. Mara wiped a tear from her cheek. I don't know how to repay you. You don't, Daniel said softly. Just get better. That's enough. And for the first time since Daniel met them, he saw true relief on Mara's face. Not just relief hope, a fragile hope growing stronger. And Daniel knew, deep inside, that this was no longer just about helping strangers. This was the beginning of something meaningful, something he never expected. A new chapter for all three of them. Days passed quietly in Daniel's home. Mara received medicine, warm meals, and real rest for the first time in months. Eli spent his days playing in the garden, reading small storybooks, and sitting beside his mother every moment she was awake. The dark circles under Mara's eyes slowly faded, and her weak voice grew stronger each day. Daniel watched all of this from a gentle distance. He attended meetings, signed documents, and continued his busy billionaire life, but every free minute he had, he spent with them. He found himself leaving business calls early just to sit with Eli and hear him laugh. He found himself checking on Mara more than any business report. One evening, after dinner, Daniel saw Eli sitting alone on the big sofa, hugging his favorite toy car, the one from the small apartment. He looked deep in thought. Daniel walked over. Everything okay, buddy? Eli looked up and nodded slowly. Yes, but I'm thinking. Daniel sat beside him. About what? Eli sighed in the way only a small boy could. About what happens to us now. Daniel felt his chest tighten. What do you mean? The boy looked down. When Mom feels better, we will have to leave your house, right? We don't have another home. And she doesn't have a job. And I don't want to be lost again. I don't want Mom to get sick again. His voice shook at the end. Daniel felt something heavy hit his heart. This child had spent too much of his life thinking like an adult, worrying, fearing, surviving. No child should feel that way. Before he could answer, Mara slowly walked into the room. She had overheard everything. She sat beside Eli and held him close. "Eli, we will figure something out," she said, though her eyes showed fear she tried to hide. "I'm getting better. I will find work. We will manage." Eli leaned against her. "But Mom, what if it happens again?" Mara's eyes filled with tears. She tried not to let fall. Daniel remained quiet, letting them speak, letting the room breathe. Then Mara looked at Daniel with a tired, honest expression. "I want to thank you for everything you've done. You saved my son's life. You saved my life. But we cannot stay here forever. You have your own life." Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then spoke softly. "What if my life is better with both of you in it?" Mara blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Daniel took a slow breath. "I've lived many years with money, success, and everything people think is important. But the truth is, I never felt this kind of purpose. When I heard Eli crying in that alley, something inside me changed. For the first time, I felt responsible for someone in a way I never felt before." Eli looked at him with wide eyes. Daniel continued, "You both brought something into my life that money never could. And I don't want to lose that." Mara swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. "Daniel, what are you saying?" Daniel turned to Eli, then to Mara. "I'm saying you don't have to leave, not now. Not ever. You can stay here. Both of you. As long as you want, I will help you rebuild your life. I will help Eli grow up safe. I will help you recover fully." Mara covered her mouth with her hand as tears slid down her cheeks. "But that's too much," she whispered. "We can't accept something like that." "It's not too much," Daniel said softly. "It's what feels right." Eli crawled closer to Daniel and hugged him around the waist. Are you saying we can stay with you?" Daniel placed a gentle hand on the boy's back. "Yes, Eli, I want you to stay." The child held him tighter, burying his face into Daniel's shirt. "I don't want to go anywhere else." Mara wiped her tears but said, "Daniel, I don't want to be a burden." "You're not," Daniel said firmly. "Let me help. Let me be part of your lives." Mara looked at her son smiling, safe, finally unafraid, and she knew deep inside that refusing help would only bring them back to the life they fought so hard to escape. She nodded slowly. "If this is truly what you want, then yes. We will stay." Eli's face lit up like sunshine. He hugged his mother with one arm and Daniel with the other. "We have a home now," he whispered. "A real home." Daniel felt emotion rise in his chest. He gently stroked the boy's hair. "Yes, Eli, you have a home now. And you will never be alone again." Mara stood and hugged both of them. It was a soft, warm, grateful hug. One that said more than words ever could. In that moment, Daniel realized something clearly. Sometimes life changes in 1 second, like the moment he heard a child crying in a dark alley. That single sound led him to a boy who needed love, a mother who needed help, and a purpose he didn't know he was missing. And now the three of them stood together, not as strangers, but as something much stronger, a family, a new beginning, a new hope, a new life. And for Daniel Cole, the billionaire who once had everything but felt empty, this was the moment his life truly became full.